Guests and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to Ask the Experts radio show, proudly sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lewert of Lewert Law, LLC. Sit back for the next half hour as host Steve-O interviews top experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Steve-O offers such educational topics as community association law, family law, chiropractic care, employment law, healthcare law, and public insurance adjusting. Interviews by top experts in their field. And now, here's your host, Steve-O.
Hey, good evening. Can you believe this weather? Well, if you're driving your car, just sit back, close your eyes, listen to the show today. We have got two incredible experts coming on, and one of them is really going to hit home. She doesn't even know this. I'm going to be asking her because we've been talking before the show. We're talking about health care. Attorney Jackie Grady with Grady Legal. I'm going to tell you something. I have learned so much from you, Jackie. And if you have a company, or if you have medical insurance from your company, you've got to listen tonight because you're going to learn a lot of things. And Jackie, we welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Steve.
I was so glad when you said I'm coming in tonight because sometimes we Zoom in, but tonight she's live in studio. Jackie does both healthcare and employment law, and they kind of coincide with each other. Before I go any further, Jackie, tell everybody about your firm.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It was good to see you.
You look great, by the way. I
Thanks,
love
thanks.
this jacket.
I'm ready for the cool weather.
You are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we do is we sort of look at that intersection of labor, employment, and healthcare, right? Because 51% of Americans are covered by their employer's sponsored health plan.
How much is it?
51%.
Wow.
So we really put the burden on our employers to provide health care for our
Right.
country. So there is a huge sort of gap between what is being provided and the knowledge of what's being provided and how to provide better health care coverage and different options for different companies.
So you're like one of the few, there's plenty of employment attorneys across the country, but you're one of the few attorneys that does healthcare law. And what does it entail?
Well, we come in and we'll help companies look at their...
You got to hear this. This is really good. Jackie actually comes in and sits down with you.
We do. We'll sit down. We talk about a whole wide gamut of things. So we'll talk about your company. Who are your employees? Because not every industry, not every company has the same type of demographic, right? So we talk about employees, we talk about needs, we talk about budget. And we look at their healthcare plan, and we'll sit there and say, look, you aren't asking the right questions to get a better plan for your employees.
But don't you find out that a lot of these companies are overpaying? The insurance companies are overcharging them?
It is amazing. And what I'm shocked about is I'll sit down with the C-suite executives, right, your CFO of a company, and they will know the cost of every line item on their budget, but they won't know how they got to that cost on healthcare.
Give me some examples.
Well, they get the premium, right?
Right.
And every year they go, wow, it just went up another 30%, went up another 56%.
Did they ever ask why?
They're starting to.
Okay.
I think I've been beating the drum long enough
right.
that people are starting to say, wait a second, there might be something here. And they're coming back and saying, why is it going up? We thought we were doing great. We don't really have a sick population on our employees, and we didn't have a lot of people that were out with major issues last year. Why did we just get hit with this huge premium increase?
Well, now what's going on now? Because we were talking about COVID before. Aren't there more people in the workforce getting sick?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's sort of a double-edged sword because a lot of companies will have like wellness programs and they think that's great, right? Oh, we're going to get our employees healthier and we're going to have health fairs where you're going to have your eyes checked and blood pressure done, and we're going to sort of do a basic exam. And guess what that has just done? You've got high cholesterol. Your blood pressure's up. You need to go to the doctor. You've now, by having a wellness program, have just created a feeder system into the healthcare system that's going to bump up your claims, which will bump up your premiums.
What changes have you seen in the last couple of years?
That people are getting fed up, that they're starting to ask those questions. Why are we getting hit so hard? And the other significant change that we have seen is when employers get that high premium, they start passing off that cost by
Of course.
getting a watered down plan with higher deductibles. So we're really starting to see employees saying, wait a second, I can't afford a $6,500 annual deductible for my health care.
What about individuals? Do you have individuals come to you and go, look at this bill that I just got?
All day, every day.
So is your client business owners or individuals or both?
Both.
Okay.
We run the gamut of everybody that basically gets health care and gets a surprise bill or gets a bill that doesn't make sense or they question it. That's part of the process when we look at an employer's health care plan, is because we know that those employees are going in for procedures that are being overcharged.
So I just had a friend of mine who went in with COVID. He was there for 4 days and got a bill for $70,000. That's not unheard of for you.
No, that's the average right now for COVID claims.
God. So he could actually come in, sit down with you, retain your services, and say, can't be right.
Absolutely. And so what we would do, if he came in, we would give a 15-minute...
Because he's got to pay 20% out of his pocket. Is that right?
Well, it depends on if he has health
Right.
insurance. But if he's getting billed, if he's got the $70,000 bill, and we'll have people who don't have insurance who will come in with that bill.
Oh, yes.
So what we do is we'll sit down, we look at that bill. You'll hear other like patient advocates, they'll call that hospital and they'll get a 20% discount. And everyone's like, yay, 20%.
Just by calling.
Just by calling.
Okay.
And most people, and there's a theory
It's a
out
big
there,
deal. We knocked off 20% off the 70,000.
we're averaging about a 65% discount.
Wow.
So, and I say, and of course we can't guarantee results, but,
No, but I understand what you're saying.
my point is we don't just settle, we don't go off of what they've charged. We look at what was done, and we know what the true value and cost of that care should have been, and we say, this is what that bill should have been. This is what my client's willing to pay.
So do you bill on an hourly basis?
We do basically flat fee majority
Okay.
of the time. Yeah.
Okay. So I know, because I get this question asked to me all the time, people do not understand about mandates. You do employment law.
Correct.
Is anybody suing their employer?
There are, because you can mandate a vaccine. That is allowed.
You can do that.
You can, but there
So
are.
what is this with the OSHA now? That they've said that OSHA has to mandate OSHA, and OSHA is saying, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to mandate it until this gets worked out in court.
Well, obviously, look, we live in America. People sue for everything. So, yeah, somebody's going to sue about mandates. Now, OSHA, that's the government body that
Right.
governs employment safety.
Yes.
So when you drive down 95, you see all the construction guys with their vests on, the bright yellow. That's an
Right.
OSHA requirement.
Right.
Okay. And so what Biden tried to do was have OSHA administer this vaccine mandate. And of course, people are going to push back, saying my freedoms, my liberty, you can't make us do it. And of course, there's going to be lawsuits. So I can see where OSHA is going to step back now and say, well, we're not going to enforce this until the courts resolve these questions.
Let me see if I understand this right. I have so many people come up to me and go, well, these injections are from Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. They're FDA approved, but they're not. They are approved for this emergency, but they don't, because even I called Pfizer and they said, well, we're not FDA approved, but we are for this emergency. But as long as they stay within that emergency, you can't sue them, from what I understand.
I haven't heard that, and I haven't. I don't do anything with the FDA in their approval process.
Right.
I do know that it was approved for emergency use, and I believe as of September 1st, Pfizer, I was under the impression they were approved for good.
This is strange. You should call them tomorrow. Pfizer has another company under a different name that has been FDA approved, but they don't have the product yet.
Exactly.
And I said, but tell me, is Pfizer approved? Well, no, we're not FDA approved because, that takes a long time. But we do have an emergency approval. And an attorney told me that's to keep them from getting sued by all these people who die or have problems from the injection.
From the vaccine.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know the different approval processes.
Do you think you're gonna start getting really busy?
Not on. I mean, we're not gonna sue Pfizer. Like, that's not what my firm does. We're more of, let's look at.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about an employer saying you have to get vaccinated.
So yeah, and we've helped employers develop those policies. I personally don't believe in mandating.
Good.
There are maybe some circumstances where, okay, you have people working in close proximity, health and safety would be an issue that perhaps that would be acceptable, but it should be strongly encouraged. You can provide reward programs for people who voluntarily,
Right.
That's key. You cannot say, go get the vaccine. If somebody voluntarily goes and gets it, you can say, all right, we're going to give you a bonus or a gift
Okay.
card, Amazon, whatever. So you're allowed to do that. But there's also, you have to look at the flip side of it. If you don't mandate vaccines and somebody comes in sick with COVID and they get everybody
Oh, my
sick,
God, yeah. I didn't think of that. Do you have companies call you and ask you about the mandate, if they can mandate?
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a tough question.
It is. And that's why, I try to look at the
'Cause
full
I
picture.
love you told me. I mean, you kind of let people make the decision themselves.
It is. I look at healthcare. It is not one size fits all. As much as
Right.
they try to hem us into a one size fits all model, and I have that same approach with all my employers. A small office-based company is going to be a lot different than, say, a landscaping company where people are outside. They're not working in close proximity. Why would you mandate a vaccine if people aren't working close to one another?
We're getting ready to go to break. I don't know. Something just touched me and said, "You got to say this." We were sitting here talking. There's a lot of people in their car right now listening to their show, stuck in traffic. If I'm going to blow you away when I say this, you might have a huge company, and your employment firm is downtown in a high rise with 70 attorneys. Can I tell you something? I would rather have Jackie Grady Legal handling my employment law or healthcare law, because first of all, the service that you're going to get, and stop thinking that bigger is better. I learned that a long time ago with Yellow Pages. Used to be with Yellow Pages for attorneys. If you had a full page ad, oh, you must be the best. And it wasn't like that. So if you own a company, I want you to call Jackie tomorrow. Give everybody your phone number.
Yeah, my number is 754-333-0313.
And tell them you heard it on our show tonight. We're going to go to break, and we come back. We've got more with Jackie Grady of Grady Legal. We'll be right back.
Grady Legal PA is a boutique labor, employment, and healthcare firm serving clients throughout Florida. Founded by Jacqueline Grady, Grady Legal is helping companies and individuals fight back against the predatory billing schemes of America's healthcare system and insurance carriers. Jacqueline is at the forefront of these emerging legal issues and was featured in the Wall Street Journal for her efforts to combat inflated hospital charges. For over 20 years, Jacqueline Grady has assisted businesses and employees in navigating the various federal and state laws governing discrimination, overtime pay, and fiduciary duty under healthcare plans. If your health insurance premiums are exploding, deductibles increasing, and are still receiving surprise medical bills, contact Grady Legal PA, as a high percentage of bills contain incorrect or fraudulent charges. If you want an evaluation of whether there has been a violation of discrimination or wage laws, contact Grady Legal today at 754-333-0313, 754-333-0313. We are back now with more of the Ask the Experts radio show, proudly sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lewert of Lewert Law LLC, covering South Florida.
We are back with a rainy night in Florida. It is horrible out there, and I'm sorry if you're stuck in traffic, but hey, you've got our show to listen to. This is the Ask the Expert show. We're with you every Thursday night, drive time, 6 to 7, with South Florida's finest experts. Tonight, we're doing our healthcare law show with attorney Jackie Grady, and the name of the firm is Grady Legal. And I'm telling you, if you own a company or you're an individual, you especially now, I think I was just telling Jackie that a friend of mine got a bill, was in the hospital for COVID for 4 days for $70,000. And he does have insurance, but his insurance isn't going to pay for the entire $70,000. But see, he could go to Jackie, sit down with her, and you just said you average, not everybody, but you average 65%. That's a lot of money. So I want you to make sure, because listen, God forbid, you never know what's going to happen, but I want you to write Jackie's phone number down. I always want you to have it. And if you own a business and, you know, those every year, those premiums keep going up, maybe, just maybe, Jackie can help. She's not going to pay your premiums for you, but she could sure help you. So we're talking about kind of COVID, but we're talking healthcare. And I want to add, I kind of asked you before, why are medications cheap, the same medications, cheaper in Canada or Mexico?
There's this called R&D, research and development, right? So
Okay.
there's this whole policy within American legal system that we want to protect companies that put all this money and resources into research and developing. And drugs is a perfect example, right? You just don't create Tylenol out of thin air. There's testing, there's trials that have to be done. So to do that, we give these companies sort of a monopoly on selling that drug for so long. And they can sell it because there's no competition. They can sell it for whatever price they really want it.
Right.
So we get in that situation. But here's what I just learned this the other day, is I found out that pharmaceutical companies, when they're done with this grace period where they're the only ones allowed to sell the drug,
Right.
will make one minor change to the drug, and it may just be the way it's delivered or packaged or
Right.
something along those lines, and it re-ups that grace period. So you're eliminating any
Wow.
competition for that drug. So that's one of the reasons. And then we don't have any cost controls. I mean, I don't know what they do
So
in
there's
Canada
no
and Mexico.
competition.
There's
what
no
you're saying.
competition.
That is amazing. What do you think employers would be most surprised to learn about with healthcare benefits?
So I think what a lot of companies don't recognize is there's a thing called cross-plan offsetting. And that's a mouthful.
Wow.
But what will happen?
Does HR know about this?
They don't. But insurance companies play a lot of games with people's claims, and they'll take money back from one company and they'll actually give it to another company to pay off claims. And so you don't know where your money's going. The other really big issue is there's a federal law called ERISA, which gives employers they have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they're spending that money on your health plan prudently and reasonably, which means you got to know where the money's going.
Wow.
And they don't. And people can sue them and they can sue the company. And guess what, Steve? they can sue you personally if you breach the fiduciary duty.
So you do employment law also. I don't know. Are you ever asked to make up a handbook for a
Yes.
new company?
Yes,
So these are things that you would want to make sure, because how would companies know this?
they don't, and that's where there's this. I said earlier, there's a gap in what people
Right.
know, and that's really becoming apparent with the health plans. And for so long, everyone just kind of do the status quo. Nobody can afford to do the status quo anymore. And so that's where we can come in and we can talk about, you might have to update your handbook. You're going to have to update your health care plan. You're going to have to look at your plan. You're going to make sure your plan design is correct. And you also have to make sure that the booklets, you get those booklets from your employer,
Right.
that they're actually compliant with the laws. So many of them are not, and you're just opening yourself up to liability.
Gosh, you wonder how many of these businesses know this. You know, I can't let you leave without talking some employment law. What is the area? I don't know if it's overtime or
Wage and hour.
wage an hour.
Mm-hmm.
What is area are most people coming to you for now when it comes to employment law?
Yeah, so the big issue now is, well, we've saw it with remote working and people claiming overtime.
Oh,
And it becomes, how do I know somebody's working more than 40
yeah,
hours
that's
a week?
right.
And that's a big question. And,
How do you?
well, there's tracking tools if people were on their computer. Before COVID, it was a lot of like remote servicing. So like your AC guy obviously isn't going to work in an office.
Right.
How do you know that he was at somebody's house working on an AC unit for 3 hours?
Okay.
And so there's different ways. You can put a GPS tracking device on the work van.
So there's a way you can prove to see if someone is working?
Absolutely. And one of the big misconceptions is people say, "Oh, well, they logged out or they hit the time clock. I didn't know they were working." Well, if you start getting emails or text messages from your employee, and you can't ignore it.
Wow. What other areas?
So we do employment discrimination.
Discrimination?
Yes, absolutely. So you have, your race, gender, pregnancy discrimination. So we handle those types of discrimination claims. We can advise employers on policies and procedures. Frequently get phone calls from employers saying, "Look, I've got a problematic employee, and she just became pregnant, but we were planning on firing her."
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a sticky one.
So what do you do?
Well, it comes back to, what's in your handbook? Have you documented the performance
Right.
or the lack of performance? And, have you followed your procedures in your handbook to properly terminate somebody? And it's amazing how many people don't do
Jackie, how many new companies do you find out who have a handbook?
It's in various stages. There's obviously some that have none.
Yeah.
Then you have people who, they've taken the time, they do their handbook, they review it annually, they update it, they, make sure it's still compliant with various laws. And then the majority of companies, I say they kind of the mishmash. They got a handbook from their friend, they found one online, and they use that, they try to adapt it. And those are the ones that concern me the most, because if they're not done by a lawyer, if it's hasn't been reviewed by a lawyer, you're really opening yourself up to some problems.
I'm going to ask you a crazy question. When you are an employment lawyer, do you represent companies or individuals?
I have done both in my career.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if someone thinks they have a discrimination problem, they could come to you.
They can certainly give me a call.
Do you ever have to litigate at all?
Absolutely.
do?
I am jam-packed up until Christmas with court hearings.
Do you see with COVID things are changing?
Within like the legal.
Employment?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's been a huge game changer. I think there's a nickname called the Great Reset.
Okay.
Like, we're resetting our society.
Right,
We
right.
obviously are seeing a mass exodus of employees from various fields. We saw the restaurant and tourism industry got hit hard during COVID. Those employees are not necessarily coming back. So you're seeing all these, labor shortages and longer waits for food when you go out to dine. So yeah, there's been a huge change in how workforces are working nowadays.
Out of curiosity, God, the restaurant business is huge here, and your servers make most of the money with tips.
Correct.
They have to declare that?
They're supposed to.
So how does somebody prove what they got?
As far as if they're
I
going
mean,
to,
if they're ever like audited by the IRS,
yeah, I mean, that
are
becomes
they supposed to keep a tally or?
you're okay. Yes, you really should come home every night, write down, I made $128 in tips. Okay, we know people don't do that.
Okay.
But let's say you on your IRS, your tax return, you say that you made $10,000 in tips, but you're driving a Maserati, you're living on a condo on the beach. Some red flags are going to go up, right? I mean, there's some obvious, deductions that can be made from that.
Well, the show went by so fast tonight. We're sitting here with Jackie Grady. Grady Legal. Give everybody your phone number and your website address.
Yeah, our phone number is 754-333-0313, and our web address is www.gradylegal.com.
Give her a call tomorrow. We're going to go to break. When we come back, we've got our next show, Tina Lord, Family Law Show. We'll be right back.
Grady Legal PA is a boutique labor, employment, and healthcare firm serving clients throughout Florida. Founded by Jacqueline Grady, Grady Legal is helping companies and individuals fight back against the predatory billing schemes of America's healthcare system and insurance carriers. Jacqueline is at the forefront of these emerging legal issues and was featured in the Wall Street Journal for her efforts to combat inflated hospital charges. For over 20 years, Jacqueline Grady has assisted businesses and employees in navigating the various federal and state laws governing discrimination, overtime pay, and fiduciary duty under healthcare plans. If your health insurance premiums are exploding, deductibles increasing, and are still receiving surprise medical bills, contact Grady Legal PA, as a high percentage of bills contain incorrect or fraudulent charges. If you want an evaluation of whether there has been a violation of discrimination or wage laws, contact Grady Legal today at 754-333-0313, 754-333-0313.